Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Sacred Brew. This is a very special episode. I've been incredibly blessed in my life to learn from teachers, uh, people who don't just pass on knowledge, but really shape how we all see the world. And I want to start at a brief meeting that happened in 2023 or 2024. I want to say I came across my guest's work almost by accident. In fact, it was probably late 2023. I think it was a clip online and then another clip, and before I knew it, it became a part of my daily rhythm. What struck me wasn't just the substance, but it was just the format. It reminded me of the good old radio days, but the feeling of sitting with someone else who spoke with clarity and conviction, and a real sense of responsibility to the listener. For those that may not be familiar, but I am joined today by one of my favorites and one of my teachers. A lot of you have been asking, who are your teachers? Who are your teachers? Well, here's one of them, Dr. Shadee Elmasry, born and raised in New Jersey, who pursued the traditional study of Islam by traveling to places like Mecca, Medina, Egypt, Morocco, Yemen, studying Arabic, Aqidah, Fiqh. He also completed a master's at George Washington University, and also completed a PhD from the University of London. He went on to teach Arabic at Yale for about 4 years, I think, before returning to New Jersey to serve as the religious center at the New Brunswick Islamic Center, and founded the Safina Society, now known for its widely followed live streams and online learning platform in ArcView and Nothing But Facts live stream, of which I'm a big fan of. In fact, it's something that my wife and I watch. Well, I watch at least almost on a daily basis. But when I returned to Australia in 2023, I continued to learn a lot from our guest. And in fact, it was in 2024 um, that I learned that he was coming to Australia, and I just had to meet him. I just had to meet him. I just had some questions about my own path, and I remember meeting him and thinking, how do I uh, approach him? How do I speak with him? There is an adab that is involved when you speak to the shiur. Subhanallah, he was not only approachable, but given the time that we had at this particular event, at this particular retreat, and there were so many people there. It again, it's the barakah of the shuyukh really, that even though they have so much happening, when they even speak with you, it's like as though time stands still. Would you please welcome my guest, Dr. Shadee Al-Masri? Uh, where are we? Here we go. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you
Um,
for having me.
a pleasure to have you. I know that this has been a long time coming, and it's been like, Dr. Shadi, will you come on? Will you come on? And here we are, and it's absolute pleasure. Um,
Alhamdulillah.
I thought I'd start with, a lot of people engage with some of your ideas, your positions, your clarity. But I don't think we often pause to ask, what does it actually feel like to carry the that sort of level of conviction in today's world? And so today I'd like to go, or I'd love this conversation to go beyond the ideas and into the experience of holding them,
Yeah.
especially in today's world, given where we are. The weight of it, the responsibility of it, and the parts of that journey that people don't always see. So
hmm
let me start here. Have you ever been afraid that you might be wrong about something you've publicly stood by?
Well, to the first question though, the important was how does it feel to have clarity? You need to ask, how does it feel? How bad does it feel to have ambiguity?
Yes.
And I think wherever people focus their love of something, they need clarity on that thing.
Mm,
So before looking at who's clear and ambiguous, you got to look at what they love. and people, they demand clarity on what they love,
Mm.
and they accept ambiguity and ignorance in what they don't care about.
Yeah.
So if you look at every field, they have debates, and the leaders of that field are the ones with the most clarity, simplicity, uh, boldness, and ability to take blowback,
Mm.
and they
Mm.
become the leaders in that field or subfield or school of thought within a field. That could be in technology, is the same.
Yeah.
Back in around the 2000s, and maybe well before that, the debate in technology was closed systems, hardware and software in one, or separate systems where you can mix and match hardwares and softwares. So that was the fight between Apple and Microsoft. So Apple couldn't have done what it did unless it had clarity on what their position was. Almost every company had to take a position.
Right.
And Microsoft was clearly the open system, where we'll make the software that'll go with everything.
Mm.
And Apple was of the philosophy that it's a closed system. We're going to make the hardware and build our own software on top of that hardware. And that software will not work except on that hardware.
Right.
And so they fought about this as if it was religion.
Mm.
They fought over this as if it was sacred to them, because that's what they loved. And you could sit on the outside of the tech world and say, well, I'm good with both. I don't have
Yeah.
a problem owning a PC, and I like owning a Mac at the same time. And you don't really care which way it is.
Yeah.
So when we look at Dean,
Mm.
and you have plenty of people, yeah, whatever, as long as you're a good person, because he's not invested. His
Mm.
heart's not invested. So his
Mm.
mind doesn't need clarity. And
Yeah.
that's really the angle that you look at. When you love something, you're going to demand clarity. Ambiguity, it's no sensible person is going to love something and accept ambiguity in it. Now, not only is it love, it's also action.
Mm.
If you love something to the point of taking action,
Mm.
then action requires even more clarity. So
Yeah.
I can't have ambiguity if I'm turning right or left off a highway. Am I going straight on the highway, or am I exiting right, or am I exiting left? You're going to cause an accident if you don't have clarity. And so ambiguity becomes actually like a harm
Mm.
and a necessity. Clarity becomes a necessity. I mean, so that's how I would look at that. And then
So,
when you're young, you oftentimes have clarity um, prematurely.
yeah.
And I definitely see my in assessing things that I had a lot of clarity prematurely.
Mm.
And that's because you may not realize, you just don't know that there are other sources out there
Yeah.
of truth. And
Yeah.
when we say sources of truth, meaning that the truth of Islam, for example, is like a tree.
Mm.
There's the trunk, which everyone agrees on.
Right.
And then there are primary branches come off the trunk, and then secondary branches come off that, tertiary branches come off that, twigs come off that, and then leaves come, and fruits. So you end up with layers, and that's what makes a tree beautiful. A pole is not beautiful, and a tree is only beautiful when it has these 4 layers:
Yeah.
primary, secondary, tertiary, and then twigs. That's what gives the texture to the tree.
Yeah.
Oftentimes when you're studying something, if you're taking up the primary
Cut.
the trunk,
Mm.
then taken up to a primary branch, then a secondary branch, never actually separating what's a branch, what's a secondary versus primary versus trunk, and you think it's all one and the same in its authoritativeness.
Mm.
And that's why the idea of a sophomore, which is a wise fool, is he
Mm.
knows something of value, but he doesn't know the position of his knowledge. So if you imagine a baby ant following its mother ant and going up the trunk, then the primary branch, secondary branch, tertiary branch to the twig, and they're imagining that the authoritativeness of all this is the same. Well,
Yeah.
you later on, Sayyidina Imam Jafar as-Sadiq famously said, the scholar is the one who knows the differences between the scholars, which
Mm,
means the truly learned person, he's the one who knows that this statement is a trunk. There's no discussion on it. There's only
mm,
one possibility.
mm, mm,
This statement is a primary branch. So there's
mm.
only very few differences. Once you hit the secondary and the tertiary and the twigs, there's so many twigs on this tree.
Yeah.
There's so much room for difference on the
Subhanallah.
twigs.
I love that analogy.
And
Yeah.
you don't have 1,000 twigs on one tree,
Mm.
but you only have one trunk,
Yeah.
right? And this,
Yeah.
and so in learning Islam, you come out in the beginning firing away with everything you know,
Mm.
and out of mercy for you, Allah only gives you a very small audience because you're making a lot of mistakes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're not living in an era where a person could complete a full 10-year course of study before he helps people. You're studying, you come home, and the person next to you maybe doesn't pray.
Mm.
What are you going to do? Not tell them not to pray and say,
Mm.
before I ever tell you anything, I have to finish 10 years of study?
Right. Right.
So in our world today, you're studying is basically you're born in a battlefield. You go
Mm.
off a little bit to study, and every night you come back to the battlefield.
Mm.
And so from Allah's mercy, he shrinks your audience. In a sense, you don't do too much damage, but you have to try.
Keep going. Yeah.
You got to learn.
Yeah.
You have to get in your reps. So
Mm.
there comes an inflection point, though, where your audience grew, and the mistake now has far more dire consequences,
Mm.
and it makes you think 10 times over.
Yeah.
And so those inflection points sometimes destroy a person, and they sometimes grow a person.
Right.
If you're
Right.
worried about your ego, it destroys you. If you think that I am what the public thinks of me, you're
Mm.
destroyed.
Yeah.
If you think I'm upset because I misrepresented the truth, and I don't care about myself and what people think, what I care is what is the right thing to do and in the sight of Allah,
Mm.
then you grow. Because it's never going to stop happening.
No.
There's never
No.
going to be a time where you're not going to say something wrong. And they say that,
Yeah.
like the preacher,
Yeah.
the student of knowledge and the preacher is like a river
Mm.
where the next part of the river purifies the one before. So tomorrow you purify the mistakes of yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And no, I love that. And when you were saying, and you were giving us the analogy of the twigs and so on, I feel like a lot of us today are really just talking about twigs, and that's where a lot of the disruption and the argumentation and I'm talking people like me who are just lay people who may not know too much, but we just keep talking about the twigs. We keep arguing about the twigs,
Yep.
and we're holding. What about the trunk?
I tell my friends all the time that, not derisively but truthfully, that the religion of the non-learned Muslim,
Yeah,
it's so different than the religion of the scholar,
so true.
right? The priorities are so different. So
Yeah.
I remember seeing a post that said that a graphic said 89% of the ummah is starting Ramadan on Thursday, and 11% are starting on Wednesday, right? And then unity, question mark, question mark, question mark. But I thought, subhanAllah, like, unity is not on the leaves. Unity is on the trunk
Mm.
and the recognition of the primary branches of the tree.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm unified. I'm at total peace, sitting with 4 people. All of them understand we take our religion from the madhabs
Mm.
and the dominant opinion of the madhabs.
Right.
And only when there's a hardship or a need, we can step outside into the weaker opinion of the madhabs.
Right. Right.
Now, when I'm sitting with such a person, we are truly at unity, because
Correct.
it is irrelevant if his twig grows this way and my branch goes this way and his branch goes this way. We've already committed ourselves that these are the branches that are acceptable.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the more you learn, the more you realize that unity is sourced at the depth of the method rather than the results.
Was there ever a time earlier in your life where things could have gone in a completely sort of different direction for you? You know, what did I mean? What did doubt look like for you personally? Not necessarily academically, but sort of internally.
So when I went to Rutgers, when I went to college, I was young in college. Um, I didn't like high school. I felt like it's a waste of time.
Yeah.
And I asked my advisors if I could, is it fathomable for someone to do high school in 3 years?
Mm,
And so they said, well, no one's ever done it
mm.
because people tend to enjoy high school and go to the senior prom and all
I
that
hated
and
high school too.
be with
Yeah.
their friends. I was like, actually, most of my friends are not in this school. My friends are up north and they go to Rutgers and they're older than me. So I want to catch up to them. And I ended up, she said, yeah, you could just have to skip lunch for 2 years. You have to
Mm,
take a class instead of lunch. And you have to take a couple summer classes and a couple extra standardized tests. I said, let's do it. So we did it. So that
superb.
means I got to college relatively younger than other people. And when I got to college, and I thought to myself, I feel like there's so many ideas. And I felt a very unsettling feeling like a leaf blowing in the wind.
Mm,
Every time a trend comes this way, you follow it. Then the trend dies out. Then another idea comes and you think that's a great idea. And you genuinely think these are great ideas. And you get impressed by all these ideas. But then you're going to be sick to your stomach if you're like a feather blowing in the wind like this. And so there is a fitra of a human being that wants establishment
mm,
and wants rootedness.
mm,
So I began at this point to turn to what I know for sure, which is the Quran and the Deen.
mm.
And I was a complete like noob in terms of knowledge. So I did not know. I knew the fundamentals as any Muslim kid would. I had parents that had taqwa and made big sacrifices, so that I knew.
And this is
But
when
the
you were in
actual,
Rutgers.
yeah, the world of knowledge, I didn't know.
Yeah.
I knew the fundamentals,
Mm,
and I saw examples of pious people who lost a lot in their life,
mm.
at least at that point of life,
Right.
for the sake of the truth and Islam. So um, I said, all right, I need to start putting down my roots here and returning to what I know will never go away, so, which is the Quran. So I started to read a lot of Quran, and a lot of things can come and make you happy, and then they go away. Like my whole life was hockey, the sport of, you
Mm,
don't have this in Australia,
yeah.
but the sport of ice hockey, to me, it was, this is pre-internet, 24 hours in my mind, 24
Right.
hours a
Okay.
day.
Mm.
Everything to me was hockey. If I saw two legs of a chair, that's a goal. If I saw a stick, that's a twig off a branch, that's a stick. A
So
baseball
it's
bat
like
is a stick.
the equivalent of cricket for desis.
Of course, yeah. And football for Europeans,
Yeah.
right? Soccer. So that was my life. But I began to realize something that was no good, which was the afternoon games would end about 5 or 6 p.m. on a Sunday night afternoon, and then you'd be depressed, be really down that the game is over. And it began to get so bad, I started thinking to myself, why am I putting myself through this?
Mm.
Like, why am I investing myself in something that will always have a bitter ending?
Yeah.
And in my time,
Yeah. Mm.
before YouTube, before internet came out, when the game was over, it was over. There was no hop onto Twitter, get the reactions. There was no wait 20 minutes while they put the highlights up on YouTube, then you could dissect every highlight yourself. There was no what do they call it? Stream East, that you could go on and watch the West Coast games until you fall asleep and watch whatever game you wanted on Stream East. That didn't exist. When the local broadcast was over, it was over.
Yeah.
And you just had the four walls to look at. So I thought myself, and this is a microcosm of what the dunya is. I
Mm.
thought to myself, why am I punishing myself with my attachment to something that
Subhanallah.
ends?
Subhanallah. Yeah.
And that's what made me start reciting Quran gave me a feeling of being at peace, and I could do it at any time. That's what sold me on it, is I could do this at any time, and it fills the void. Now, when you do this, shaitan's going to come at you, and that is actually what happens. Um, so I'm at my first year of Rutgers. My first semester of Rutgers was all fun and games, discovering, being with friends. Then that wears off, and now you're actually start thinking. And at this period of time, the shaitan, he came on a big attack,
Right.
and it was all attacks on ideas, all ideas. Like, all right, first thing is, how do you know that your religion is right and not others? Just because you were born in it, what are the chances that you're born in the right religion?
Mm.
Then it was the question of, well, you're worshiping Allah, the creator of the universe. What if there's another God with his own universe somewhere else? Right? Then your books are very simplistic. The stories of the Quran, this is very simplistic. The philosophers have far more complicated ideas. What are the chances that the simple thing is true and the complicated thing is false?
Yeah.
And it was, I would say, 3, 4, or 5 weeks of incessant wiswas. Now, the difference is doubt would affect your action. You wouldn't pray.
Yeah.
You would
Right.
pray half-heartedly. But wiswas is just, it doesn't affect your actions. It's just a nuisance. And I'm 100% sure now this was a campaign, a
Yeah.
satanic campaign that he does with everybody who steps in the right direction to try to weave them off, and he gets you on your weak spot. And my thing was always the mind, not weak spot, but my main focal point was the brain. Like, what decision does your brain come to? That's what you have to follow through, regardless of the outcome. Right.
But
Yeah.
sorry, go on. No, I'll let you finish your train of
So the
thought.
Quran was the answer to most of them.
Yeah.
Most of my answers came by reading the Quran and seeing the answers there, and also practice. Because
Mm.
I came upon a hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi
Allahu
wasallam
Akbar.
that said, "As-sadaqatu burhan." Sadaqah is a proof. So I then began saying, okay, I don't know if I'm going to be punished. Am I like an atheist? I don't know. What am I? This was what you don't know. You don't have knowledge. So
Yeah.
thinking this, you think you're guilty. Today, if I saw somebody said that to me, I said, that's wiswas from Iblis. Keep studying, do good
Mm.
deeds. It'll go away. But
Mm.
when you're on your own, you don't know that. So I think,
Yeah.
like, how does Allah view me that I have these thoughts? And so I would say to myself, oh Allah, don't judge me by what's going on in my head. Judge me by my actions.
Hmm.
And so sadaqah is a proof. So I'm going to prove it, what I truly believe, by giving away my money and Eid money,
Subhanallah.
any money that came in, I'll just
Mm.
give it away. And I would say, oh Allah, don't judge me by what's going on in this crazy ideas in my
Yeah.
head. Judge
So
me
look
on
what
my
I'm doing.
actions.
Yeah.
Right?
Subhanallah.
So that's the method. And then finally, the last, really the final um, straw that totally removed all this stuff, this West completely, was that in high school, in a time of ghafla, in heedlessness, when I was not reading Quran, just praying 5 times a day like any other Muslim kid, but not doing anything else, and really just chasing after fun, essentially.
Yeah.
There was something that I wanted badly, like I wanted it so badly that I started praying for it for a whole week. That's like a big deal for a kid, right?
Yeah.
And without even realizing it, exactly what I was looking for, it happened.
Mm.
And I asked myself that night, I said, why would Allah give it to me when I'm not worthy of it? Like, I'd never pay attention to him anymore. I'm in a heedlessness. I just pray 5 times a day and I'm in heedlessness. 1 year later, I realized why. Because to me, that is a proof of that there is a creator who listens. Allah
Yeah.
listens.
Yeah.
I prayed in the Islamic manner. And to me, there was no other option in religion. The fastest thing to flick away for a Muslim kid is Christianity, Judaism, Hinduism, Taoism. It's all nonsense. Just like the fastest thing when you're a Muslim, the easiest thing to swat away and flick away. And I don't mean to offend, some people that we know that are those religions, but I'm just expressing myself honestly.
Yeah.
When you read the Quran and you look at Jewish life, think about their Bible. Look at Christian life, think about their Bible. There is not a comparison. Those things are, one group is too insane because they cloister themselves up. We live under Lakewood. Lakewood, New Jersey has more Bible Torah schools, than Israel itself.
Right.
We drive by them, and this is not something you ever want to join. All right, Christianity, it suffices for a teenager to see, if you want to be a priest, you got to choose between God and women and marriage. Who's doing that, right? And then it's nothing. To be Christian is nothing in my view. Like, when you pray once a week, nothing is unlawful, nothing is obligatory. It's just skim milk. It's like a vat of water that you poured some milk in it and call it milk. It's not milk, right? The other one is undrinkable. And Islam has got a balance to it, and it's a worldwide religion. It's important to take kids to Umrah, because to me, you see the whole world is there. You don't see the whole world in the Vatican.
No.
Right? So
yeah.
That wasn't a discussion. The discussion was between Islam and atheistic ideas. That was the actual, we could say, operable player in the field.
For you,
so the idea that you remember that your prayer was answered exactly as you had made it. There has to be a listening creator. And remembering that was it after that.
But
it was
I
off to the...
wonder what would have happened if that didn't happen, though. I mean, that's it's not a... I don't know.
Well, here's the beauty of it. The proofs of Islam are never rest on one leg. The Quran tells you there are prophetic hadith that tell you about the future. There are Quranic ayat that tell you about matters in life, in the world, that no way somebody back then could have known it.
Right.
Okay. There are anecdotal evidences. So driving by Lakewood, New Jersey, all of us, we look at what these people are nuts, right? Driving by Lakewood, New Jersey, that's anecdotal evidence for why something is false.
Right. Okay.
Going to Mecca and Medina and seeing that 1 million people are here, no one is shooing them to pray. They line up in perfect rows and in Mecca concentric circles. That's just dazzling to the eye to see, with no coordination.
Yeah.
That's anecdotal evidence for the truth of Islam. So if that one incident didn't exist, another one would have filled this place.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And do you remember how old you were back when that incident took place?
That was age 16 and 17.
That's a very impressionable age, right? That's a very
impressionable age.
You want answers. You want answers right now. You want that. Really, if this is what you say, well, then prove it. Show it to me. There's that sort of that attitude, and subhanallah. What is the emotional weight of speaking with certainty in a world that questions everything?
My problem is this: when you speak with certainty, when you're absolutely certain about something, there's a temptation to be dismissive of other ideas. And when you live amongst the people whose ideas you dismiss and you think are a joke, you just hope, man, I hope they don't see this episode, right? I literally just dismissed all their gods,
right,
and what they, at some level, deem to be sacred.
Yeah,
this is the worst thing. That's why there are some people who are probably more, you can share their stuff more to the public, because it is a temptation and maybe a bad habit in a cosmo, and it definitely not probably not the best option to be constantly flicking away ideas that you have already assessed in your mind are not right,
Yeah.
are completely false. And that to me is something I always wrestle with, that you probably want to say the same thing but without uh, the injurious tone.
Mm. Softly,
Because
softly.
yeah, you may be right in your theory, your idea is right, but you're leaving a lot of people on the table. You're leaving a lot of dawah on the table that you could have done to those people.
Mm.
But now you've emotionally triggered them and they don't want to listen to you anymore because they're emotionally triggered by how derisive you are of their beloved ideas. So to be certain about something in a cosmopolitan world that we live in, that has been the thing that I need to review
Mm.
most of all.
And there's a lot of what you're sort of sharing that makes you think, the companionship, the people around you, or the people that you surround yourself with, even at Rutgers, or even in that sort of impressionable time when there was a lot of doubt and waswas, were you, when you look back, and when you look at the current situation, look back then, are you and were you surrounded by people that sohbat, that sort of facilitate some of that journey, or no?
Sometimes yes, but not enough
Mm.
to do two things. The first thing is that there were not enough scholars
Right.
and friends and
Mm.
imams, and that resulted in a constant battle with shaitan.
Mm.
You're alone most of the time,
Yeah.
and you're going to be bombarded and trying to be knocked off the path.
Yeah.
And that produces character in a
Mm.
sense. It
Yeah.
produces a lot of mistakes. It produces a lot of slow growth,
Mm.
but it also produces a lot of character
Yeah, it does.
because you're
Mm.
always having to assess, am I going to fight this battle another day? Is there another, am I going to do this again? And it truly brings out, I would say, the core of the foundation of the building, which is you're asked over and over, are you willing to pay this price? Are you willing to go through another year of this without any support? And so by testing that, your love for what you're doing gets tested,
Yeah.
gets strengthened, I mean. And that's the foundation. I don't think the next generation has to go through that. If
No.
one generation goes through it, the layer on top does not have to go through that. The layer on top can do something different now,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
have support and grow. So I view it as a generation of roots.
Mm. Mm.
There are roots. So where we had enough help to survive, but definitely not enough to thrive.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Mm.
when I was a teenager and in high school and when I was in college, there were no resources to learn in the town, in the drivable area. There were no resources. There was no institute. There were
Mm.
no faqih.
Mm.
When they flew in, that was a big deal. And
Yeah.
when you got a chance to travel, that was a big deal. When you got their tape, that was a big deal. And if you got their book, that was a big deal. But it was so sparse and so scarce that in order to survive this desert, only the truly passionate will survive by Allah's permission. And that becomes the ember for the next generation of people.
Mm.
They're going to need to be lit, and they will not suffer the A, slow growth, and B, the pains and the potentially derailing tribulations that the first generation had to face. And so I see now people who, in a very short period of time, learned what I learned in a very long period of time because the
Mm.
resources were different.
True.
But I asked myself, like, um, how many people would have been in a wasteland, uh, lit with a passion, then not satisfied with that passion for 4 or 5 years?
Yeah.
How many people would have survived and stuck with it?
Yeah. Showed up. Yeah.
Very few people would have stuck with it. Most people they let it go. Like, oh, it's not practical. It's not happening.
You mentioned earlier on that one of the things that you're sort of reviewing and assessing constantly is this. I think you used the sort of the flicking off of certain ideas and thought processes and so on. That would attract a lot of criticism. What kind of criticism actually stays with you, and what have you learned to let go of?
The criticism that stays with me is the criticism that's based in the truth.
Okay.
And because if you're doing something in public, you have to sift through the stuff that's coming at you.
Mm,
The stuff that's actually based in truth is what you actually have to grab, and you need to put it in a separate bucket.
mm,
And then you need to shut everything else off, and you need to deal with that. So being wrong about the facts, being rude,
mm,
although there's some subjectivity to being rude, not having examined all the angles,
mm,
right? Not having an eloquent demeanor, manner,
mm,
insulting people
mm.
in the process of making your point. Those are the things that cannot be dismissed.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're embedded inside of an extremely offensive post that's filled with other kinds of nonsense.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you have to extract that active ingredient, put it in that bucket, and you have a choice now. You can either side with your ego,
Mm,
I'm not listening to it, or you can side with the facts and the truth.
yeah.
And if you ignore the facts and the truth enough times, your product will be an inferior product.
Mm,
It will be. So um, that's what's most important. Now, there are certain things that sting,
yeah.
but it's an irrelevant sting. So you can be bitten by something that's not poisonous, not a
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
So, but the the feedback loop that you get from any public work, you have to be able to sift through what's true and what's false,
Yeah.
and what's true embedded in an insult. That's probably the hardest for most people because it's easy to flick it away, but you got to actually look for the truth. And if you're smart
Mm,
and you believe in Allah, uh, Allah sent you that for a reason.
yeah.
If you're guided to that, Allah sent you this person to speak to you in this manner to get your attention in the first place, to say the truthful thing. What difference does it make if it came from that person or someone else? The important thing is get it in front of you.
Mm,
Get this piece of information in front of this person so he can fix himself. His best friend's not going to tell him,
yeah.
right? Your best friend's not going to tell you all the truth. So the people who love you aren't going to tell you.
Yeah.
All
No.
they'll tell you in such a gentle way, it
Yeah.
won't
Yeah.
turn the radar.
It
You know,
won't do anything.
it won't move
Yeah.
the radar.
It won't move the needle up. Absolutely.
But someone who hates you, then you realize, let's work this backwards. Allah made them hate me so much for a reason, for my benefit, so that they could have so much emotion when they actually tell you your problem. And the
Ha-
emotion will get your attention,
Yeah.
and you have to sort of be dead to yourself. You have to be dead to yourself. You have to view yourself as just a tool. You want Allah to use you? Be a better tool. And then the
Mm,
tool doesn't care. You use it and you throw it in the toolkit. You throw it in the garage. You should be like that.
mm.
That you could just be thrown. You cannot benefit from a glass plate. It's too
Yeah.
delicate. I don't want
Too
to deal
delicate.
with it.
Yeah.
It's too delicate. All right. It has one use and a very minimal use. That when
Yeah.
you have guests and you put it out there, very minimal use. But you want to be like a all-purpose Swiss Army knife or a hammer or a sword. You need to not be so delicate. So you have to be a little bit dead to yourself. And the subject matter of Sufism helps justify that rationally. That, oh, these insulters are good.
Mm,
It's good to lower your ego a little bit, to be embarrassed, to be hated in a way. But are you hated for a reason that you caused before you become a fake victim?
yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's how you have to handle it, handle these assessments.
And I know we're also pressed on time, but how do you then protect your heart in these situations?
Um, the people can only upset you um, if you're reading their stuff. The moment you go home to your loved ones and your friends and the masjid, it goes
Mm,
away.
goes
That's
away.
why, the one who internalizes this thing is a guy who is solely living a public aspect of life.
Yeah, yeah,
You live a public aspect of life, you live a community aspect of life, you live a family aspect of life, and you live your solitary aspect of life with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they all work together in a certain way. You have to juggle all of them together. Your public life cannot be an embarrassment to your immediate family,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
right? And it cannot be at the expense of your time that you spend with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So all that stuff is it has to come together.
What What do you think is the biggest confusion facing Muslims today?
Probably the existence of evil in the world.
Mm.
And the Prophet ﷺ said, "Kad al-faqru an yakuna kufra." Like poverty is so bad it can result in a person becoming a kafir
Mm.
or losing their iman so much that it's synonymous to kufr. And the poverty is not just of wealth, poverty of security,
Mm.
poverty
Mm.
of success.
Yeah, yeah,
It's very easy for a person to look out and say, "No, this terrible stuff happened. Where's God?
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
where is He?" But you have to correct those sentiments, and that's why the Prophet ﷺ was asked. That's why Angel Jibreel asked the Prophet about Islam, Iman, Ihsan, and the hour. And when he didn't get an answer about the hour, the signs of the hour. The signs of the end of time are such that if you know them, your Iman goes up. If you don't know them, your Iman goes down. That's how powerful signs of the end of time is. To study signs of the end of time, your Iman will actually go up. Because when you see the Prophet said all this stuff is going to happen, then the event becomes a proof of Islam, a proof of the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, proof of hadith. But if you didn't know this stuff was going to happen,
yeah, yeah,
you say, okay, if Islam is true, why is this all this stuff happening?
yeah,
Why
yeah.
why isn't the people of God, aren't they winning all the time?
Do you think we're raising a generation that, I look at myself and look at my children. Do you think like we're raising a generation who seek truth or comfort?
To be honest, I think you have a generation that is extremely thoughtful. And I know that we oftentimes see some really bad qualities up really reaching at the level of like brain rot, as people call it.
Yeah,
You worry how these going to upkeep the world, but you also see people who are actually um, stim- exposed to and then stimulated, and then they become seekers because they're exposed to so many ideas online
yeah, yeah,
that they don't let it go. They need to
yeah.
have answers. I went to Tennessee one time, a little place called Johnson City.
Right.
The adults or practical people asked practical questions. The youth, though, they were not a silly group. They were
Mm,
not asking, is music halal? They were
mm,
asking about destiny, evil.
mm.
Um, they were asking about the divine names and are they coexistent things alongside with God? I was floored. So
Yeah,
clearly they're getting it from the internet, but it's sparking within them. I think you're going to see a generation of people whose minds have been tested and who have delved into questions of knowledge that previous generation haven't at that age.
yeah,
And they may be a minority, but it's something I haven't seen the likes of it. I haven't seen people, so many people, exposed to debatable ideas
yeah.
at such a young age the way we're seeing it now. So if they get through that, they're going to be the best,
Yeah.
right?
But and with, I guess, as an add-on to that, what you just mentioned, and the level of questioning and curiosity, what concerns you most about the direction of Islamic discourse online right now?
I would say that too much debate
Mm,
can harden the heart, and that's one of the things that I feel like is dangerous. That there's sometimes argumentation that's
mm,
just excessive, and it hardens your heart. It can
mm,
ruin you.
mm.
And
Yeah,
in-person religious teaching is so important because you get so much more. You get the transmission of love. You get the transmission of one generation to the next. You get the transmission of ethos.
mm,
So, for example, it's one thing to look up whether or not XYZ is right or wrong. It's
yeah,
another thing when a human being, a responsible scholar, tells you
mm,
it's wrong at this level of error,
yeah,
and we're going to interact with them in this manner.
yeah,
Like you get a much more realistic, practical answer, not just a theoretical answer, which doesn't answer to our emotions, doesn't look at our context, doesn't look at how the answer will affect us. The same answer could affect two different people in two different ways. So that's the importance of just the fact. I would backpedal it even more. Just the fact that online discourse is the majority of a people's
yeah,
education. That's the
yeah,
really the issue.
yeah. And is that one of the reasons perhaps you started ArcView, or is that?
That's exactly the reason. So that
Yeah.
we might be online, but we're interacting.
Right.
That's a big difference than a video site, right? Or just a QA website.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the goal of this sub branch of Safina Society is to connect the people to the teacher,
Yeah.
not necessarily to imbibe the facts in your head.
Yeah.
To
Right.
connect you to the teacher, to get your question answered by someone on Telegram
Mm.
is more important to me than getting the answer faster without a human interaction.
Yeah. Totally. Completely makes such a huge difference. Um, Finally, I wanted to ask you, if you had 1 minute with a
Mhm.
young person today who feels overwhelmed, confused, and unsure who to trust, what would you say?
I would say read the biography of the Prophet, peace be upon him, thoughtfully. Then look for people who resemble what you read in that biography.
Mm,
Ask Allah to guide you to a group of people or even one person that resembles what you're reading in the different biographies of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because
Allah.
he is the Quran walking, meaning he is the teaching of the Quran in action, meaning he is the application of the religion, and his mannerism character is the fruit of the religion. So read that, listen to lectures about that, read multiple biographies of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then measure people against that, right? Whoever is closest to that. Of course,
Mm,
nobody's gonna reach 100%, but whoever's closest to that, explore that and ask Allah to guide you to the right people,
yeah, I mean,
and you'll be guided. If you're connecting yourself to the Prophet, Allah loves you.
yeah, I mean,
If you're now asking Allah for help, He helps you.
yeah, yeah, I mean,
That's how simple it is.
yeah, I mean. Dr. Shadee Elmasry, thank you so much for
My
joining
pleasure.
me on the
My
Sacred
pleasure.
Brew.
My
Truly
pleasure.
appreciate your time and all that you're doing. Allah increase you in daraja,
Ameen.
and place barakah in all that you do. I mean,
Ameen.
I mean. Um, Dr. Shadee Elmasry joining us on the Sacred Brew. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.